All right, everybody, welcome into another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about breakout candidates for the upcoming fantasy football season. Essentially, players that we think will take a big jump into a new tier, and just a big improvement. And breakout players are always the players that win you guys leagues. So excited to talk about this one. How are you guys?
Doing good. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. Especially excited to see what Stores has because he always seems to have some pretty interesting takes. But yeah, it'll be fun to talk about these.
Oh yeah, I love doing this. I hate revealing people who I like to our fantasy league members, but I like giving and sharing information and how I feel. This is always exciting. Anything fantasy, sign me up. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. And I think we'll have some good ones to share with you guys. For some later sleepers, people who are being forgot about. But I'm excited. Let's get talking about it.
Yep, let's get into it. And like I said at the start, these are players that will really win you guys your leagues. If you draft one of these players later than they should be going, that's how league winners are born. So it's exciting stuff. With that, we'll get into my number one player I'll talk about in no particular order, and that is going to be Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback. I know it's not like that bold, putting Trevor there.
It's a safe pick.
Yeah, it's very safe, but the reason I have Trevor as my breakout candidate is because I think he will take a jump into, if not the alien tier with Justin Herbert and Josh Allen and all them, I think he will take a jump up into like the Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson tier, and he'll be right there with the top 5 quarterbacks. And I really do. I've loved Trevor since he was coming out, and he's just, with Doug Peterson, it's a match made in heaven. And I think that Peterson just called the offense perfectly to Trevor's liking last year, and it just complemented Trevor so perfectly. And bringing in Calvin Ridley is the main reason I think he will take that step up to be like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL next year, is because I think Calvin Ridley is a true number one, and hopefully he's kind of in the same form he left 2 years ago when he was on the Falcons, because he was a great receiver. But I think with that great play calling and just some great weapons outside Ridley, complementing Ridley, they have Zay Jones, and they lost Marvin Jones, but they have Christian Kirk in the slot and then Evan Ingram. So they've got a lot of talent, and I just think Trevor Lawrence will take a big step this year, and I think he will be an absolute steal in fantasy football, especially because he's being drafted in about the 8th round, and he's being drafted in behind some quarterbacks that are honestly similar to him profile wise and kind of in the same tier of him already in fantasy. And like, I don't really see too much of a drop off after like Herbert or Burrow to Trevor, to be honest. And he's going like 5 rounds later than them. So I just love Trevor, and I think he will be a league winner in fantasy.
Yeah, I really like all your points you had there, Dan. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence is exciting. He's kind of that blue chip Peyton Manning prospect coming out of the draft, and we're starting to see it. At the end of the season, I mean, he was really throwing the ball, and he was not afraid to throw the ball, and he's kind of coming into his own and becoming comfortable with that offense and taking command. In his second year, I mean, there's a big jump from year 1 to year 2. And we're going to see probably an even bigger jump from year 2 to year 3. Because, I mean, it's his offense. He's got Doug Peterson. Urban Meyer's gone out of his life, forget that whole rookie season. But Trevor Lawrence is definitely a guy that can be a league winner, because I mean, he's not afraid to throw the ball. Jacksonville's not afraid to throw the ball, and they're going to be throwing it 40 plus times a game. And yeah, there's no reason he couldn't be a 40 plus touchdown kind of guy. And he's also got running upside, So everyone kind of forgets that he's a sneaky fast guy. So I absolutely love that pick, Dan. And would you say the 8th round?
Yeah, his ADP is going right around the 8th round. I'm sure that's going to go up just because he's such a talented quarterback, and the Packers are getting hyped up. But
it feels like Jalen Hurts last year type of value. So
exactly, like everyone knows Trevor's good. Everyone is aware of that. It's not really bold to say that, but I do think he will take that Jalen Hurts jump that he took last year. That's a great example. His work ethic, his tools, and the situation around him, it's perfect, and it's a recipe for great success.
Yeah, and his weapons only got better. He basically replaced Marvin Jones with Calvin Ridley, and everything else stayed the same. So it only got better for him.
Yeah, super exciting for Trevor.
Yeah, I absolutely love that pick, Dan. I'm excited. I'm super excited to see him next year. And yeah, if you can get him in your leagues, especially around that ADP of the 8th round, absolute steal. I mean, I would feel comfortable taking him even up to the 6th round, but if you're getting him later and stealing him, that's a league winner quarterback for you.
So I might be a little bit dyslexic. It's actually the 6th round, but
Oh,
that's still a complete steal. Herbert's going 4th round, Lamar 3rd round, Burrow
I
early
can
3rd round, Hurts 2nd round. So it's just still a complete steal when you consider him not too far off from the tier above him.
I can see him finishing higher than like a Justin Herbert next year. I really can. I know Stores might not like that, but I can see him.
no, I see it.
Well, they're
I,
just such similar quarterbacks, and they're both in really similar situations and great AFC teams. So like, it's a coin flip, honestly. Like, obviously Herbert's more established, he's more proven, and he's in a little bit better of a situation. But like we saw in the playoffs last year, the Jaguars are great, and they're going to take another step up. And it 100% is in the realm of possibilities for Trevor to finish top 4. 100%.
Yeah, and Doug Peterson's the right coach for him. We saw the improvement. It's only going to get better in year 2. And now they got 2 years under this offense. I love it. I love it.
So it's going to do number 1, Josh.
So my number 1 right here is going to be Mr. Kyle Pitts, who I want to talk about. Shane doesn't like this one. I'm going to get hate for it. And Kyle Pitts, rightfully so, was so bad last year. I mean, he hit rock bottom. But Shane, beautiful thing about rock bottom, he's only going to go up. I mean, 28 receptions, 300 yards, and 2 touchdowns is absolutely disgusting from a prospect like Kyle Pitts. But I also don't think it's all him to blame. I think it's kind of the environment, the culture, the system that he's been running in. But I think it's gonna be changed around, and I think they're gonna actually start targeting Kyle Pitts. I mean, his rookie season, 68 receptions for 1,000 yards for a tight end in a rookie season is actually really good. He doesn't score much, but if you're banking on a guy with tremendous upside, who's one of the best tight end prospects we've ever seen coming out of the draft and hasn't really hit his stride yet. I mean, and rightfully so, it takes tight ends a couple years to develop to really get into the NFL. It's a hard position. You got to block, you got to catch. But I think from year 2, it's just going to be a huge difference. I think Kyle Pitts knows he's got to step it up. Here in a year or 2, his 5th year option is going to come up, and he's going to want to be able to, the team to pick that up, and he's going to want a big contract. So I think we'll see major improvement from Kyle Pitts, and especially in a fantasy aspect.
I mean, he still has an unproven quarterback. He's still on a run heavy offense, and he still sucked last year. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe it's only up from here, but they have Bijan now. They're going to be so focused on him, and they already are so run heavy. Now, at a guy like Bijan Robinson, it's like Kyle Pitts is just going to fall further and further into the darkness.
But that might help. Having a guy where the team banks on play action, off of Bijan Robinson, you're hitting Kyle Pitts, on a post down the middle, ooh, I love it,
I'm personally on the side where I agree with Josh. I do think Kyle Pitts will break out this year. I think he'll, if not break out, he'll regain his rookie form and kind of regress to the mean. Probably he'll have a mean of his rookie season and last season, because last season 28 receptions on 59 targets, like that is not sustainable for any NFL team. Like that is crazy. That is like little league stuff. 28 receptions on 59 targets. I don't even know that percentage, but that is so bad. And 356 yards. I think he triples that this year. I think he's really close to 1,000. And like you said, I think Bijan does help him. I think Bijan just helps that whole offense because he's such a key point that defenses will have to just key in on. And
oh yeah, and if they're keying off the run, that's where play action comes into effect. And play action with sending your tight end on a seam. I think Kyle Pitts is going to benefit from that, and he should be a good red zone guy this year. I'm crossing my fingers that he can score more than 2 touchdowns. But I mean, 1,000 yards in your rookie season kind of shows you that's pretty impressive. And
he averaged 15 yards a catch that season too. So like you said, if they just get some more play action in, some deep shots to Pitts, which they just don't attempt. They don't attempt any go balls to Pitts, and they need to attack that, and I hope they do. That's what they drafted him so high to do. And yeah, I really do believe that he will be maybe their target leader, and I personally think he's their best receiver. I'm not the highest on Drake London, but I think if Kyle Pitts was a receiver, they'd be the same type of receiver. So
for sure.
All right, I'll talk about my first guy. I'll do a quarterback, and that's I've Kenny Pickett. So there's not much risk necessarily with Kenny Pickett this year. His current ADP is late 15th round, so basically going undrafted. You can almost pick him up off the waiver. He's got such a just solid receiving core in Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson as a wide receiver 3, Pat Freiermuth. He's got great options, upgraded offensive line, give him more time in the pocket. And he's on a team that just wins games. I think, Tomlin's been there, like 15 something years, and he's always finished above 500. He's just going to be winning games. They're just going to be scoring touchdowns. So that's going to help him as well. And he has a rushing upside. His first game last year, I mean, it was kind of a fluke. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, but he averaged just over 4 rushes a game. So that definitely adds some value to the quarterback position. Now, he's had a full off season to prepare as the quarterback one. Last year when he started, I mean, when he first came in, he came in at halftime against a great Jets defense and just kind of thrown into the fire. So he's got that almost whole season under his belt, and now the whole off season. I think we're going to see a big jump from Kenny Pickett this year.
Yeah.
Like you said, he really does have a decent rushing ability, and he will be scoring at least like 3 rushing touchdowns every year because he just has that
At least
that in him. He's kind of like Sam Howell, where he just runs it. He doesn't care. Kind of like Baker Mayfield. They're not athletic, but they're just gonna run, and they're good runners because they don't care. And he's gonna take a pretty big step up this year because the talent around him is honestly great. Like I think him and Pat are gonna have a legendary connection in Pittsburgh. It's a little early to say that, but I think they have like a really good start to their careers, and I think them progressing together is going to be brilliant. And George Pickens on the outside, awesome. Deontay Johnson's still there, so they have so much talent with the great coaching they have, and they're going to be in a lot of games this year. Their division's tough, so that kind of sucks. He's the worst quarterback in his division, so that's unfortunate. But I definitely do see him taking a big step up and maybe like doubling his stats from last year.
totally.
Yeah. I love it. I actually really love that pick. I really like the Steelers this year. They finished the end of the season really strong and almost made the playoffs. I was kind of rooting for them to make the playoffs. But they finished really strong. And like you said, he's got Hall of Fame coach Mike Tomlin, going into his second year, and he's gonna progress. He's gonna get better, and the whole system is team friendly for him. And he's got a good running back, which we didn't mention, Najee Harris. So they got a solid run game. Great weapons on the outside, great tight end, really great coach, and always a solid defense. And that's gonna really help Kenny Pickett. And I kind of see like a Daniel Jones type leap for Kenny Pickett this year, like how Daniel Jones was last year. I kind of see that Kenny Pickett kind of taking that up, and Kenny Pickett definitely being a top 15 quarterback, possibly coming up in his second season, which wouldn't surprise me. That he does have some athleticism, he can roll out. And yeah, and I think he fits that Pittsburgh culture really well, and I'm super excited for year 2.
He definitely has that upside, and I think there will be some weeks where he just drops stinkers because that Steelers offense has weeks where they just don't produce for some reason. But the offense honestly has a lot of talent, and they should be a lot better.
Yeah, as a QB2 undrafted, put Kenny Pickett on your roster. Would not hurt. Definitely could be a league winner. He might be maybe in a top 12 fantasy quarterback. We don't know. He could have that type of season. And I really like that from you, Shane. I mean, maybe he could even be higher. I don't think there's any reason he couldn't be.
Yeah, he's being drafted in the 15th rounds of leagues. So you can't really, he's a sleeper.
You may as well just take a shot on him,
Yeah, you might as well. Yeah. Definitely has that shot to break out too with that great team around him.
Yep, 100%.
All right, with that, we'll get into my number 2, and that is going to be the rookie wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Addison. It's a little weird to say a rookie is going to break out, so I kind of hesitated on this one, but I think that him and Justin Jefferson as a pairing is going to end up as like a top 5 receiver duo in the NFL by the end of the season. That's kind of my take this year. I really see that progressing and taking place. I think Kirk Cousins will just love Addison, and whenever Jefferson's double teamed, he's not even going to care. He's just going to look at Addison and throw it to him because he's really just such a great route runner. He's so good on the intermediate game, and he's just so versatile. He can play in the slot on the outside. I think Jordan Addison will be this year's league winner for fantasy football. It's always a young rookie wide receiver, and last year's Christian Watson. I think 2 years ago was Amon-Ra, and I think this year it's Jordan Addison, also out of USC. And going back to his season with Pitt, speaking of Kenny Pickett 2 years ago, he was electric. He was the best receiver in college football with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave in college football. Like, he was fantastic. And I mean, Jordan Addison, the sky's the limit. And I just think in that Vikings offense, it's a perfect fit, and he's going to be extremely productive. And no one's really expecting the production he's going to put up.
Yeah. I really like that, Dan. I really like that pick. Jordan Addison definitely could be a league winner, and he kind of reminds me, kind of like the system, but like the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 role. Kind of reminds me of like an AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and I kind of see a Devontae Smith type season from Jordan Addison coming up. Where there's no reason he couldn't have 900, 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. And he is NFL ready. He's a good route runner. He's polished. He won the Blenkoff Award for the best wide receiver in college football 2 years ago. Kind of took a downfall when he went to USC, but that's just because they spread the ball out a lot more. It was a lot more balanced system where they're getting the ball all over the field, certain design plays, and so his numbers took a little bit of a hit. But I'm surprised he didn't go higher in the draft. He fell all the way into the 20s, which I thought he could have easily been a top 15 pick. Possibly, wide receiver 1 over Smith and Jigba or even Quentin Johnston. But and he falls into the perfect wide receiver 2 role with Minnesota, where everyone's double, triple teaming Justin Jefferson, and so it's going to leave a guy like Jordan Addison in a lot of one-on-one situations, and that's just where you get your money right there from him. Is those?
Yeah, you go back to our draft videos in April, and we really were higher on Jordan Addison than consensus. Both of us, we both love Jordan Addison because of what you mentioned, because of how NFL ready he is. He just fits an NFL receiver already. He is the most NFL ready receiver out of this class, and I think that's a big reason why he will be this year's breakout.
Dan, do you know what his ADP is right now?
Yeah, it is
Because
the 7th round.
And that's money round right there. I think
that's the round you kind of take those, like the last few years, the Garrett Wilsons, the Chris Olaves, the Christian Watsons, those type of guys. So
because I guess depending on how your draft goes, obviously Danny's first guy Lawrence and Josh's first guy Pitts, those are where you're drafting them. They're going to be your starting guys, but guys like Addison, if you can have on your bench, and it might take a couple weeks for him to break out, 4 or 5 weeks, but then it could happen. I don't know. Honestly, that's a little earlier than I thought he was going. But having a guy like Addison on your bench could be a nice.
You took him as your 4th receiver in our last mock draft episode, and I loved your receiving core. I think that is if you can get that, that's so perfect.
If you can get a guy like Addison as your 4th receiver on your bench and just wait for him to break out, that would be awesome.
But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I do trust in him to be even your wide receiver 3, and I think that he's able to start if you need him to week 1, just because he will be starting for the Vikings, and they're great. So
you could probably toss him right into your flex week 1 for sure.
You wouldn't have to be too scared about it.
No,
not ideal.
Yeah, I'll get into my number 2 is also a receiver, and that's going to be Mr. George Pickens, another Steeler on the list. George Pickens, and he had a really good season last year. He had in his rookie season 52 receptions for 801 yards and 4 touchdowns after coming off a pretty bad injury from Georgia and falling in the draft. But George Pickens, really was like a consensus 1st-round pick until he had his injury, and people kind of slept on him and forgot about him. He fell way too late in the draft, but the dude is just an athletic specimen. He's built really well, 6'3", 200 pounds, super fast. He can get open down the field, and I see a big leap for him in year 2. I think that 800 yards is going to become 1,100 yards, and you can double the touchdowns, maybe 8 touchdowns. And I think him and Kenny Pickett are only going to grow, and they're going to be a good duo for, the next 6-7 years, as long as George Pickens is healthy and productive. But he, there's no reason he couldn't, legitimate be the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh this year too. I kind of expect him to take that jump over Deontay Johnson just because of who he is. And I feel like he should be that X role receiver where they focalize him on the outside. But he really excites me this year, and an average depth of target of 15.4 yards is fantastic. That's what you love to see from your receivers. And he's young. He's only 22 years old. He was born in 2001, which kind of makes you laugh. But yeah, I think he's going to take a huge step this year, and I think you're going to see his numbers. 800 yards go up to 1,100, 4 touchdowns to 8 touchdowns, 52 receptions to probably 70 or 80, and I think he will be Pittsburgh's wide receiver 1 for years to come.
I could see him definitely this year taking the leap over Deontay Johnson and being the number 1 guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's funny because I get that feeling too. It just feels like he is their number 1 guy already, and he shouldn't be, because Deontay Johnson's simply a better receiver, and he's gonna get last year he had some freaky catches and he comes down with about everything. But Pickens just seems like he's their number one guy. He seems like he's the one that they want to be their number one guy in the future. There's still some question marks with Deontay Johnson's future there. So I agree completely that Pickens will establish himself as their number one this year and be great as their number one. And he's going to score a lot of touchdowns for them. And something kind of fun. He's actually being drafted right next to Jordan Addison. So I like that. It's kind of funny. And Shane actually, speaking of our last mock draft, Shane picked Pickens and then he drafted Jordan Addison right after.
Look at Shane over here taking the all-time sleeper draft.
Yeah, so I love Shane's. You guys got to go watch that mock draft. I loved his receivers. It was a really deep, fun group. But yeah, like where you can draft these guys in the 7th round, they're real league winners. And George Pickens and Jordan Addison, I both love.
I feel like you draft George Pickens as like a potential flex who could be wide receiver 2 or 3 upside on your fantasy team. Like you're getting him at a flex range, but he could definitely, and we expect him to take that big leap to be your wide receiver 1 or 2. So
that's a great point. You're getting him as a flex, and I feel like he can't really be worse than the flex either. Like he's going to be your flex at the very least. So
100%.
The Steelers have a lot of hype to live up to this coming season.
They did have a pretty easy schedule to end the year, but they looked really good, and I got everyone really excited.
Yeah. Okay, my next guy, I'll talk about a wide receiver, and that's Javonte Dotson. I really like this guy. Couple things I guess you could say. His quarterback play is questionable with Sam Howell, but who knows? Sam Howell could be solid. Even if he's not, you toss in Jacoby Brissett, and Jacoby Brissett, he made Amari Cooper a top 12 wide receiver last year. So I feel like it could work out totally fine, either with Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett. And then, he did deal with some injuries a good portion of last year. So hopefully he can be healthy. But he's coming into his second year, and a second-year breakout is like a factual thing for first-round wide receivers. So I think he's in for a big breakout this year just because he's coming to his second year. It's just a thing. His first 3 weeks when he's healthy, he saw over 20% of the wide receiver target share, and 8 out of 12 games he only played 12 games, and 8 out of those 12 games he saw 20% or higher in the wide receiver target share. He's currently going around the wide receiver 25 to 30 range, and there's a very, very good chance he finishes top 20, top 15. So that's a good steal right there. If he really does have this big second year breakout.
I think he does reach 1,000 yards this year, and I think he kind of makes Curtis Samuel irrelevant this year as well, because I think he'll take a big step up and kind of just be the running mate to Terry McLaurin. And I do think he will be the high end wide receiver 2 in the NFL at the end of the season. I think he'll be up there with the Devontae Smith's conversation. Obviously he's not Devontae Smith, but I think he can be up there with a top 10 wide receiver 2 because he's really good. And he showed Sam Howell showed to even trust him last year when he played. He threw it to Dotson a lot. They're both rookies, same class. So Sam Howell's going to feed him a lot. And
that was a good comparison. So I feel like Devontae Smith and Javonte Dotson they're both great wide receivers, and they're both sort of in the same position. They're both the wide receiver 2 on their teams and they can finish much higher than a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely love that. And one thing I did like about Javonte Dotson is right as he started in those first 2 games, he was scoring touchdowns. He scored 2 touchdowns and he scored 1 touchdown. So he scored 3 touchdowns his first 2 weeks, and that's a big thing for me. The ability to get open, in the red zone and to get downfield deep is huge, and that's huge for fantasy. It kind of reminds me of another Eagles guy, AJ Brown, who just can score, And, I think when we see, bigger target share and, more targets coming Javonte Dotson's way, that's going to be exciting. I think he could be even a 10+ touchdown guy. And he did go on another, let's see, I think it was weeks. Let's see. It was
I think I have it up.
He had 1 touchdown in each game. And I love that consistency when he's scoring. It was in the middle. I see.
Week 13, he had, I'll tell you, let me just switch this real fast. So starting with week 13, right? The week before their bye, he had a touchdown and it was 16.5 PPR points. Then their bye week. And then week 15, he had a touchdown with 20.5 PPR points. And then week 16, another touchdown with 20 PPR points. And when he's on, he's a high-end wide receiver 2.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I love that. That's a big upside guy right there. And what did you guys say his ADP already?
No, he's being drafted after George Pickens and Jordan Addison. And I had to double check that because I thought he was going before them.
So I'm
kind of surprised by that.
Dotson's going in the early 8th round. Where's Pickens going?
They're both going 7th round. Pickens going early
Wow.
7, Addison's going mid 7, and Dotson's going 8. So that's pretty crazy to me. I thought Dotson to be ahead of him, and he's really close to those guys. So Dotson's a complete steal, and he will break out. He'll pay your value for sure. He's definitely going to be worth this 8th round pick for sure. That's crazy to me. I'm like a little speechless by that.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about about some of those Redskins receivers. I was talking earlier about Terry McLaurin being very undervalued.
He is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just simply because of Sam Howell, and I don't think Sam Howell is going to be that bad.
Has Terry McLaurin, with the quarterback carousel they've had, has he ever had under 1,000 yards? Like, can we get a stat check real quick? Oh no, wait, he's been in 20. Oh, his rookie season he had 919 yards, and he's had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons with this absolute disaster class of quarterbacks that they've gone through. So, yeah, these Redskins receivers are sleepers. There's some studs out there and playing with some low end quarterback play and still producing. So it's kind of exciting.
So basically, the risk is not very high when you're drafting Javonte Dotson.
No,
I love that.
Low risk, high reward.
Potentially high reward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he started the season off great. He got hurt, not his fault, and then he came back and he was still scoring touchdowns. So
yeah,
it's great.
All right, Dan, let's hear your last breakout player.
All right, we will get into my number 3, and it's someone who I'm just completely high on, and I'm in love with the player, and he's just my favorite player in the NFL, and I think he's going to have a fantastic season this year, and that is Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy.
I wish I would have put money on this.
Put money on this. He's going to be great. Sean Payton coming in. He's already said Jerry Judy's the guy. Cortland Sutton isn't it. He's like the Gabe Davis to Stephon Diggs. Cortland Sutton's nothing. Jerry Jeudy is such an electric player. We saw it last year when Russ started clicking. Jeudy was housing touchdowns for like 80 yards. He was taking slants for touchdowns. He scored 3 touchdowns against the Chiefs and almost upset the Chiefs. He's an electric player, and he was solid in fantasy last year. He outperformed his where he was drafted. He quietly finished in the top 22 after being injured a few weeks. So I love Jerry Jeudy and the way that he ended the season with Russ. And then adding the fact that Sean Payton's going to come in to making it a much more offensive and just fantasy friendly offense. I love Jerry Jeudy, and the sky really is the limit. The guy was drafted over CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson for a reason. He's just such an elite talent, and the way the guy moves is just rare. You don't see it often.
Wait, the Broncos took Jerry Jeudy over Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, Jeudy went 15. Henry Ruggs went 11, by the way. So Henry Ruggs went 11. Jeudy went 15.
Jalen Reagor also went.
CD went 16. Reagor went 22. And then Jefferson went
I guess, the Broncos pick isn't that bad compared to what the Eagles and the Raiders did.
Exactly.
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb was definitely the steal of that whole thing.
I think CeeDee Lamb came into a great situation in Dallas. If Jerry Jeudy came into that situation where he didn't come into a situation with Drew Lock, it's a little bit different, I think.
Yeah, I think Jerry Jeudy just kind of had his system has not been very friendly for him. But he's very boomer bust, so Jerry Jeudy will be a 30-point guy, or he'll just completely disappear for two points, So he's very boomer bust, but like you said, bringing Sean Payton in is the biggest aspect of this all, and having a more friendly, passing offense with Sean Payton's system. Every year Sean Payton always had some stud, whether it's Marcus Colston, whether it was Michael Thomas, there's always a receiver producing in that offense. And I think you're going to see a big leap for Jerry Jeudy just because of Sean Payton. And the offense is going to be a lot more friendly and focalized towards him because he is the best wide receiver talent on that team.
If you look at his scoring log last year too, like he really was so solid. Sutton started out the season as the wide receiver 1. So Jeudy started the first 3 weeks not too strong, although he had 20 week 1, but week 2 and 3 he was really bad, and then after that he had only 2 games where he had under 10 points, and they were both 9 points, and the rest of them were all over 10 points. Some of them were like 33. So he's just I think he's gonna be better than Josh thinks. I think he's a little more consistent than you think too.
No, I really like Jerry Jeudy. I do really like Jerry Jeudy. Yeah, just he just scares me, and it's not because of my Broncos bias or anything, but it's I don't know, his last week against the Chargers, he put out 154 yards. And then the week after that, he still had 8 targets, which is good, and 7 receptions, but he put 38 yards up. And then 117, and then 70, and then 60, and then another 70, and then 65, 0. And then before that, I guess it was the first few weeks where it was kind of a slump. But I don't know. The talent is all there, and it just needs to come together this year with the right coach. And
one
hopefully
more
Russell
point
Wilson improves.
is Russ really was so abysmal last year. Like, he was so bad. If he can just be average, if Sean Payton, one of the best offensive minds in NFL history, if he can just somehow get this Hall of Fame quarterback to somehow play average, then Jerry Jeudy's going to be elite, because we know that he's going to be the number one guy. Sean Payton said he's going to target him a lot.
Yeah.
So I love Jeudy, and I think he's going to take a big step up into being like a wide receiver 1, maybe. I really do.
Yeah. I like that. I agree. I'm excited. And Shane, how are you feeling about Jeudy? We haven't heard much from you.
I really like Jeudy. I feel like it's kind of inevitable that he's going to break out just with where his position right now. I think he's the obvious wide receiver 1 on the team. It's only up from here for Russell Wilson. They have a much better coach. I like Jerry Jeudy a lot this year. He's going late 5th round, which I don't know. Is a little earlier than I thought right now, but I think the breakout it's going to happen. I think it's going to be great.
Wait, so his ADP is 5th round? Or is that
like I got him in our last mock.
End?
I got him in our last mock in the 6th round, and he was my wide receiver 3. Like, if you can pull that off, I think that's
if
perfect.
you can get
better than a
Jeudy,
wide receiver 3.
If you can get Jeudy in the 6th round, then that's a steal, because he's going with 5th.
Yeah, because that could be for real wide receiver. It should be. Like what his stats? What do you have? Almost 1,000 yards last year. There's no reason Jerry Jeudy shouldn't be 1,000-yard receiver. And he scores. He'll have those games where he scores 2 or 3 touchdowns. It has that, potential. So, there's no reason Jerry Jeudy can't be an 1,200-yard guy. And being drafted in the 6th, okay, that kind of makes me feel better about him. Or 5th, 6th, because that's wide receiver 1 upside in the later rounds.
And depending on how you're building out your team in the draft, he could be your 3rd wide receiver. He could literally be in your flex.
Exactly. And that's what I did last draft. And that was just what I fell in love with that. And I'm going to target that in all my leagues, because he'll finish as a wide receiver 2. I'm positive.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Drum
Let's
roll.
get into Josh's number 3 with that.
All right. Drum roll, please. A guy you've all been expecting, Mr. Isaiah Spiller will be my 3.
Ooh.
And this is yeah, that's exactly. This is a breakout candidate. And I'm not saying this is going to be somebody who just takes over the league, but this is a sneaky, sleepy guy who definitely could have the potential to be a flex spot for your league. And where you're getting him, he's just a waiver wire guy. But Isaiah Spiller was drafted last year by the Chargers in the 4th round. And, this Austin Ekeler whole thing that's been going on, the contract, they didn't even, without having clarity on Austin Ekeler, they didn't draft anyone, to replace Ekeler or to be a backup to Ekeler in the draft without knowing and having clarity. So it kind of shows me something that they do believe in this guy. So Isaiah Spiller, he didn't even play last year. He's pretty much just a healthy scratch. But he was also the youngest player in last year's draft. He was 20 years old all last year, and now he's pretty much just going into his rookie season this year. He's 21. He's the same age as Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. This is like his first rookie season. And yeah, he didn't really get much opportunity last year, but they didn't draft anyone to come in and compete with Spiller or Joshua Kelly. We all know what Joshua Kelly is. He's just a mid running back who's a good depth piece who can play special teams. But I think the Chargers kind of have a plan, and they kind of know something about Isaiah Spiller to where he could be a sneaky, and he's a bigger back. He complements Austin Ekeler well. He's 6'1", 215 pounds. I feel like he could maybe step into that Melvin Gordon role, and that's just a maybe. This is a total dart throw, but this is the kind of stuff that wins you leagues. If Isaiah Spiller becomes a guy who can touch the ball 10, 15 times a game and score, it could be a Melvin Gordon, Austin Ekeler situation, like when they were their best back in, when was that,
2019
or 2019? Yeah,
18. So what happens when Ezekiel Elliott is a Charger in a month?
Then that screws everything up. But then this all becomes irrelevant. But yeah, given if Zeke becomes irrelevant or becomes a Charger, which is definitely a possibility. He would actually be really good. But I feel like they kind of have a plan. And Brandon Staley, he's constantly said this and preached this, that the running back position is a young man's position. So you only have such a shelf span. You know, your life as a running back is pretty short, and these young guys, you know, they're the ones with fresh tires, ready to go. And there's a reason Isaiah Spiller was drafted in the 4th round by the Chargers. They're going to get him touches, and I think this is the year. I think he probably learned how to pass protect better this year. He got his body in a little bit better shape, and I think this is going to be the year where he gets involved.
Yeah, he really did come into the league incredibly young. Like, I remember Austin Ekeler coming out last year in interviews, and he was like straight up saying, like, yeah, this guy's not ready for the NFL. This guy's like, people were excited for him, and he's like, no, this guy's not playing this year. Like, and it was a surprise, and he was right that he didn't touch the field. And Ekeler knew, like, the guy just, I think mentally he's just a little young. He needs another year in the offense, and hopefully Kellen Moore will work good with him. And like you said, we know that Joshua Kelly isn't it, so just they better try at least with Spiller. They didn't bring anyone in, which is interesting. So they better try with Spiller because Kelly is not. He's the RB3. So try Spiller for the upside.
Yeah, Kelly needs to be the RB3 special teams guy, and Spiller needs to be your legit running back too. You know, and he's got the frame. This is what we drafted. Kelly's skill set doesn't complement Austin Ekeler very well, but Spiller's kind of a guy who's an all-around back, but he's bigger and he's a little bit of a bruiser, and he can be those guys to get those 1 to 2 yards and those shorter touchdown type of things, and take majority of the brute away from Austin Ekeler, who, in all honesty, is a better receiver than he is running back. So
obviously, I mean, he's obviously going undrafted in drafts, so he's a guy you can scoop up off the waiver wire, maybe a couple weeks into the season, assuming Austin Ekeler goes down. He could be a really good plug and play whenever Austin Ekeler, hypothetically, if Ekeler gets hurt.
Honestly, Josh really is calling his shot at the Chargers RB2. And if you think about it, no one's drafting the Chargers running backs in best ball leagues and underdog right now. So if you guys are in a best ball league and underdog where it's all just simply based on upside, go get the Chargers RB2. Ekeler could go down. Spiller would be his replacement. So definitely go. I like that shot actually, and like especially a best ball format where you're shooting for upside. I think Isaiah Spiller is someone that no one's going for that would actually definitely probably pay off.
And dynasty. Ekeler is on the last year of his contract. I think it's kind of confirmed that he's not going to be a Charger after this year. They're not going to pay him. He wants more money. Whether he'll get it or not, who knows? But Isaiah Spiller could be the RB1 next year. So if you're in a dynasty platform too, get this guy on your bench, because this could be the Chargers RB1 next year.
Yeah, he's definitely worth stashing in dynasty for sure. Okay, to finish it off, my last guy I want to talk about, he's also running back. It's Rashad White of the Buccaneers.
Love it.
I really like this guy, especially for PPR. If you're in a full PPR league, I think he could be amazing this year. Last year, he was one of 11 rookies in the last decade to have over 50 receptions. He's going to bring you so much value in the passing game. He's the clear RB1 on the team. He's got Chase Edmonds behind him, who's just been super underwhelming since he left the Cardinals. So he's going to be their guy. In weeks 10 through 17 last year, that's when he really started to take over the job from Fournette. That's what he saw, over half the carries per game. So I don't know. I think Rashad White's going to be a great pick this year for wherever you get him. He's going late 6th round. If you can get him, 6th, 7th round as your RB3, depending on how your draft is going. I guess it all depends on how you're building your team. Having him as your RB2, I would personally love that, just with the upside that he has, strictly coming from the passing game as well.
You would think, being such a young, exciting receiving prospect, he would kind of be more hyped up in fantasy and being drafted a little bit higher. And I mean, the Bucks clearly agree with you. They got rid of the veteran Lenny. They brought in Chase Edmonds to be Rashad White's backup. That's pretty crazy. Chase Edmonds has run out of 2 teams last year within a season. He wasn't able to make like their top 4 depth chart. So the Bucks have no running backs, and White is the only dude. And their offensive line is pretty hugely improved. No one talks about that. They improved it a lot this year. And I'm moving Tristan Wirfs to the left is going to be fun as well. And I mean, Rashad White is going to be their whole run game. He's going to be a lot of their intermediate passing game. Mike Evans is not an intermediate pass catcher. He doesn't fit their offensive scheme right now. And they're going into a Seattle Shanahan scheme right now. So they're going to be using the running back a lot on outside zones and just getting him the ball. And he's the crazy athlete.
Yeah.
I think,
oh
I
gosh.
think just real quick, I guess I'm calling my shot now. But if teams that have Rashad White as their running back 2 or even running back 3, I think we're going to see those teams in the fantasy championship come January. That's just my prediction.
Shane, you done messed up because I'm really high now on Rashad White. I'll be honest, I'm one of the ones that kind of forgot about him. He's kind of going.
He's a forgotten player this year.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking. I haven't even this. I'll be honest, this entire season when you put it on your list, I was like, oh my gosh, why have I not been thinking about this dude? And then the more we talk about him, it's like this guy could legit be an RB1. And like you said, I mean, one of how many running backs have 50 plus receptions?
11. One of 11 rookies in the last decade.
And he's a good catcher and he's a good runner. He can kind of do everything well. And he's a big, stronger back too. I mean, he's 6 foot, 215 pounds for running back. That's a good size for running back, especially one that can catch. So I'm getting really hyped up and high on him right now. You're talking me into him. I've completely forgot about him. Even though if you asked Dan 2 years ago, I had this dude on my rankings as my number 1 running back in that draft class.
You did, I remember.
So I was hyping him up over guys like Breece Hall. I was putting him above them. And I thought, watching his tape at Arizona State, he was phenomenal. I mean, this dude was just amazing. I mean, the athleticism, the balance. I just kind of went over my head and I kind of forgot about him last year, even though he was still very productive as an RB2. So,
those, like I mentioned when I said the weeks 10 through 17, when he really started taking over the job, when he had majority of the carries over Fournette, weeks 10 through 17, so the 7 weeks, 4 out of those 7 games, he was a top 20 running back.
Yeah, I'm sold.
I love Rashad White, man. I'm so excited for the guy, and just he's a league winner. Like you said, if you can get him as your RB2, I neglected my RB2 in our last mock draft, and I got Tony Pollard, and I just waited, and I was able to get Rashad White, and I think it was the 7th round, maybe the 6th. But if you can pull that off, it's a complete steal because, like Josh said, for some reason, no one's talking about the guy, even though he's an exciting, young athlete, exciting player to watch. Honestly, he's just on such a terrible team, but they still have a good line. They have Baker. They have 2 good receivers. Their offense will score.
Yeah, they still have a relevant offense, which, I mean, I think it's a just fine offense to make Rashad White a very, very good fantasy asset.
Yeah, I love it. I think you messed up by saying this guy, Shane.
I'm kind of pissed.
My feelings towards him have now substantially risen. But and I just agree. This guy, you've talked me into it. He could be a league winner. We're all forgetting about him as an RB2, RB3. I mean, if you were able to get him as your flex, I couldn't even imagine that. That's league winning stuff right there. So I love it.
The risk versus reward with Rashad White is massive this year. It might. I honestly think he might be the league winning running back this year.
Yeah.
Or he could suck and it could destroy your fantasy team as your RB2. We don't know. But I think I do like the risk reward for him, especially what's his ADP?
Late 6th round. The last pick of the 6th round.
That's pretty much 7th round. That's actually okay. Never mind. That's a low risk, high reward. That is
it's not too big of a risk. I mean, I think we're looking at this might be too aggressive, but sort of like a Josh Jacobs of last year, where Jacobs was kind of slipped down, and then Josh Jacobs was the biggest reason teams won championships last year. I think we're going to kind of see that in Rashad White.
I'd say there's no risk. I would say there's no risk. Who's going to overtake him other than him tearing an ACL, which is the only risk I see. Who's going to overtake him? The dude from Vanderbilt a few years ago that they're about to cut. I don't even know his name anymore. It's Chase Edmonds and Keyshawn out of Vanderbilt. I don't even remember his last name. Keyshawn Vaughn. They have such a miserable running back core, and Keyshawn Vaughn will be in the CFL next year. So it's just, what is Rashad White? Unless they bring in, they cut Lenny. So who are they going to bring in?
Yeah.
They're not going to bring in anyone. Rashad White is him this year.
Yeah, son of a bitch, I'm taking him in the 3rd round.
Oh
God damn it, it's happening. I want him high. I'm going to take him. He's going to be on my team. Thank you, Shane.
Well, if he's on your team, I hope he's the biggest bust of fantasy 2023.
Oh shit, I'm pumped. I'm excited. Gosh, can we just get to fantasy season any sooner?
know.
So I'm so excited, and I'm excited to keep doing mocks and stuff like this because I love fantasy content. This is so fun.
Yeah, if you guys like this episode, stay tuned because we're going to be doing a similar format, but for sleepers next week. And we have a lot more fantasy football episodes, one per week. So check out the NFL Seekers podcast. We're also going to start our NFL deep dive series this week, where we're talking about every team in depth and predicting the outcome of the season. So super fun podcast, fun future, excited for the season. Hope you guys had a good day.
Yes, sir. And also creating a TikTok. So
Yeah.
gonna be big.
Check us out on TikTok. We're gonna start posting some reels and some videos on TikTok. So should be fun.
Okay, fun one, guys. Love it. So
All right, check out the NFL Seekers podcast.
Peace.
Peace, boys.